The Happy Gizzard opens, Jethro's dream of culinary stardom and the empty dining room. I have returned to this particular stretch of the Beverly Hillbillies more times than I can easily count, and every single return begins the same way for me, with a quiet, almost tender ache of recognition. There is something about the opening of The Happy Gizzard that feels less like the start of a half-hour sitcom and more like the moment a family finally admits out loud that one of its members has been dreaming in public. Jethro Bodine, that towering, open-hearted boy with the 6th grade diploma and the appetite of 3 ordinary men, has decided that the purest expression of his new life in Beverly Hills is to feed people. Not to spy, not to become a brain surgeon, not to produce motion pictures, though those ambitions will come later, and often, but simply to open a restaurant and watch strangers sit down to plates of the food he loves. The fact that the restaurant is called The Happy Gizzard already tells you everything about the collision that is about to occur. The name is pure Clampett, honest, slightly grotesque, completely without pretension. It is the kind of name that would make perfect sense in the hills and sound faintly alarming on a street lined with French bistros and imported automobiles. I still feel a soft private smile rise in me when the first lines roll out. "Dinner time, come and get it, Dad. Ellie Mae, that's all, the gizzard's ready. If they get cold, I'm gonna get hot." Granny's voice, that unmistakable combination of command and affection, fills the empty dining room like a kitchen bell. The place has been open a full week, and still the only people eating are the people who own it. That single fact lands on me with a weight that is both comic and strangely moving. How many of us have watched someone we love pour their whole hopeful heart into a venture that the world simply refuses to notice? I think of my own uncle years ago, who opened a small bait and tackle shop on a road that tourists never quite found. The shelves were perfect, the coffee always hot, and the chairs around the pot-bellied stove remained empty. Watching Jethro's restaurant sit unused feels like sitting again in that same quiet disappointment, only this time the disappointment is wrapped in laughter so generous that it never turns cruel. Buddy Ebsen's Jed is the still center of the scene, and I never tire of the way he listens. When Granny complains that she is tired of cooking a couple of tons of stuff on this menu and having no customers to eat it, Jed does not rush to correct or console. He simply exists beside her the way a good father or uncle exists beside the restless dreams of the younger generation. There is a line early on that always catches in my throat: "Maybe I shouldn't have asked him just before mealtime." The gentle self-reproach is pure Jed. He knows the restaurant was never going to fill itself through sheer goodwill, yet he cannot bring himself to extinguish the light in Jethro's eyes. That is the particular mercy of the Clampett family, and it is the quality that has kept me returning to these episodes long after most other sitcoms of the era have faded into affectionate nostalgia. They never punish hope, even when hope is spectacularly misguided. Max Baer Jr. plays Jethro's entrepreneurial fever with a physical openness that still delights me. When he finally arrives late for dinner because he has been trying to scare up some business, the way he fills the doorway is itself a kind of performance. He is too large for ordinary doorframes, too earnest for ordinary conversation, and yet the camera loves him the way the family loves him, without irony. I remember the first time I noticed how carefully the writers let Jethro's confidence outrun his understanding. He has been driving around Beverly Hills studying the competition, and he returns with the triumphant news that the places with lines outside are all advertising the same mysterious attraction. At this point, the script has not yet revealed the misunderstanding that will drive the next movement of the story, but already the seeds are planted. Jethro believes he has discovered the secret of urban success. The fact that he cannot yet name the secret only makes his excitement more touching. What moves me most in these early minutes is the way the family continues to function as a single organism, even while one of its members is clearly spinning off into private fantasy. They sit down to eat the soup of the day from yesterday, 20 gallons of catfish and apricot gumbo, and the conversation flows around the empty tables as if the restaurant were simply an extension of the Clampett kitchen. That's a good thing about having a restaurant, someone observes, you get to eat out a lot. The line is delivered without bitterness. It is the kind of gentle self-mockery that only people who truly like one another can afford. I have sat through countless modern comedies in which failure is treated as a personal indictment. Here failure is simply another dish that the family shares. Irene Ryan's Granny is already simmering, of course. The woman who once delivered babies and cured fevers with remedies that would terrify a modern physician is not about to accept an empty dining room without protest. Her threat that if the gizzards get cold she is going to get hot is pure Ryan the comic volcano always 1 degree away from eruption. Yet even in her irritation there is love. She is cooking for the family she adores, and the fact that strangers have not yet discovered the excellence of her gizzards is in her mind a temporary oversight on the part of the world rather than a reflection on her skill. That unshakable self-regard is one of the great comic engines of the series, and in this episode it is already warming up. I find myself lingering over the physical details the script implies. The dining room must be sparse tables set, perhaps a chalkboard menu featuring the very dishes that no one has ordered. The camera would have shown us the contrast between the hopeful arrangement of silverware and the complete absence of customers. In my mind's eye, I always see the late afternoon California light slanting through the windows, illuminating dust motes that dance above untouched plates. That image has stayed with me for years, a small visual poem about ambition and emptiness. It reminds me of the summer I spent helping a friend open a tiny bookstore in a neighborhood that already had 3. We arranged the shelves with such care, alphabetized the fiction, polished the glass case that held the first editions. And then we waited. The waiting is what the Happy Gizzard captures so perfectly. The Clampetts are waiting for the world to catch up to their idea of hospitality, and the world for the moment is looking the other way. Jed's quiet observation that it takes a little while for a restaurant to get popular is the kind of line that could have been written by a philosopher of patience. In the mid-1960s, when the series was airing, America was in the middle of an explosion of fast food and franchise culture. The idea of a family-run place serving catfish and apricot gumbo in Beverly Hills was already an anachronism. The humor arises from the collision between rural certainty and urban indifference. Yet the script never mocks the rural certainty. That refusal to mock is for me the moral center of the entire series. The Clampetts are allowed to be wrong without being made small. When Jethro finally confesses that he has been studying the competition, the energy in the room shifts. You can feel the family's collective attention lean forward. Ellie Mae Donna Douglas's radiant embodiment of unspoiled curiosity asks the question that will open the next chapter: what's a topless waitress? The fact that none of them know is both the joke and the tender heart of the scene. They have lived in Beverly Hills long enough to own a mansion and a bank account the size of a small nation's budget, yet they remain gloriously stubbornly themselves. The sophistication they lack is precisely the sophistication the series refuses to value. I have always loved that about these episodes. The Clampetts do not become better by acquiring city knowledge. The city is gently, repeatedly invited to become better by acquiring Clampett knowledge. There is a moment just before the scene pivots fully into the topless misunderstanding when Jed wonders aloud whether he should have steered Jethro towards some other kind of business. The line is spoken with the soft regret of a man who knows he cannot protect the people he loves from their own enthusiasms. I recognize that regret. I have felt it watching younger relatives launch projects that seemed doomed from the start. And I have felt it in myself when my own schemes have met the same empty rooms that greet the Happy Gizzard. The beauty of the series is that it never lets that regret harden into cynicism. Jed will continue to support Jethro, Granny will continue to cook, Ellie Mae will continue to ask the innocent questions that expose the absurdities of the adult world, and somehow against all commercial logic the family will remain intact. I think that is why these early minutes of the restaurant arc still feel so alive to me. They are not merely set up for the jokes that follow, they are a portrait of love expressed through patience. The empty dining room is not a failure, it is a space the family temporarily occupies together, sharing the food that no one else has yet learned to desire. In an era when so much comedy depends on the humiliation of the dreamer, the Beverly Hillbillies offers the radical alternative of the dreamer surrounded by people who will sit down and eat the leftovers with him. That more than any single gag is what keeps me coming back. The Happy Gizzard may never fill its tables with the customers Jethro imagines, but it is already full of the only customers who matter, the people who refuse to let him dine alone. Every time I revisit this opening I feel the same quiet gratitude. Gratitude for the writers who understood that comedy does not require cruelty. Gratitude for the performers who could make an empty room feel crowded with affection, and gratitude for a family that keeps setting the table even when the world has not yet decided to sit down. The gizzards may grow cold, the gumbo may sit uneaten, but the invitation remains open. And in that open invitation, I hear still the sound of home.